lot of people have a lot of shit to overcome, and sometimes they chase that comfort it's a pretty human thing to do. If you feel uncomforted in your life, to seek comfort in some way that may be a maladaptive sort of behavior to try to find a way to, be comforted, and you end up chasing the dragon or whatever it is.
You've been listening to my friend Shalom, and this is the Emotive Podcast. I'm your host, Dan. It's a couple of days after Christmas. The holiday is over. We're approaching the new year, and I guess that means a fresh start for people, a way to kind of start off the year with a clean slate. And for me, I guess that means just staying on the grind, so to speak. I've developed a decent, healthy routine. I want to stick to that. And, that means more episodes of this podcast, more conversations, getting to know people in the community, and just expanding my mind a little bit. I'm really enjoying this, and I hope you are too. This week on the show, we have Shalom, who's from a unique part of the world, Victoria, BC, this little island that's kind of near Vancouver in Canada, and her family has lived there for generations. Her and I get into some controversial topics, which I didn't really mean to get into. It just that's the way the conversation flowed to. I didn't want to shy away from it. I also don't have the most knowledge about some of these topics, so I hope I didn't sound like a moron. I'm not sure. But, she has strong opinions, and that's okay, and I think that we disagree on some things, and that's also okay. It doesn't mean that we can't be friends. It doesn't mean that things got combative or anything. But, keep an open mind when you're listening. And yeah, keep it respectful if you do end up, talking with her on Twitter or anything like that. And you'll hear in the episode, things did not really get heated. It's just that we did disagree on some things, I feel. And it made me realize that I have a lot of learning to do at the same time. If you want to help grow the podcast, share it with your friends, subscribe, leave us a rating if you enjoy. All relevant links you can find on our website, pod.co/emotive. And without further ado, here is my conversation with my friend, Shalom. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to the podcast, Shalom.
Wow.
And
Hi.
it's like I say that, and it sounds like it's a double greeting because Shalom. It's like a Hebrew greeting, right?
It is. It literally means peace, but it's the same as saying Salam Aleichem. Like peace be with you. It's yeah.
So do you intend for the meaning of the name to kind of be like the definition, like peace be with you?
Name. It's my actual real life name.
It is.
Yes.
Okay. I didn't see that. I don't know. I don't know if you told me that before, but I don't think I knew that.
I don't know. I mean, I tell people once in a while sometimes, but I mean, it's I guess it's a little bit like hiding in plain sight, when you use your actual name.
I mean, of all like the names, like people naming their kids after like fruits and vegetables, and like I don't know, I think that's pretty cool in the spectrum of all that. I mean, it's definitely like my name is biblical, but it's such a common thing. Like,
right.
Like what did Daniel in the lion's den represent? Like faith or something?
Faith, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Just putting your blind faith in the fact that you'll be rescued. I think there's a lot of that in the Bible, really.
Yeah.
Like Job, but he was being punished, I think. And
gonna be testing my Sunday school knowledge.
There you go. Yeah, mine's pretty limited. I don't know if I was raised Catholic, and we actually, generally speaking, the Catholic Church doesn't really use the Bible so much as it uses a prayer book, which is like excerpts that they have chosen hand selected for your Catholic viewing pleasure.
We had little. This just like sparked something in me. Is like we would read from different books of the Bible in church, and of course they would cherry pick stuff for holidays and that. Christmas is coming up today. recording this, it's the 23rd, night before Christmas Eve.
Mhm.
And yeah, thinking about, we would always go to church and they would have some sort of a message about being thankful.
Yeah. Peace and goodwill, those kinds of
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Those types of things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was always kind of the same thing. And it was like, for the kids, it was like, okay, we'll get through this and then we get home and we'll open presents or something, right? It's like everyone's on their best behavior.
We had to go to Christmas mass, and that was super
Oh,
late, like midnight mass on Christmas Eve, and they took you take your kids, and then and you're not supposed to eat until you get
oh
home.
man. That's
Yeah,
wild.
yeah, so we got one present and
So
food.
you were doing like intermittent fasting before it was trendy.
Yeah, we're the
Wow.
original intermittent
Dang,
fasters, yeah,
dang.
for sure. Intermittent fasting has been a thing for Ramadan
Oh yeah,
for
no,
a long time too.
immediately that kind of came to mind too. That's like
Yeah,
more than
yeah,
intermittent fast. Well, how long will they fast for? They'll fast for like,
until the sun goes
oh
down.
wow. I kind of wonder if they did it as part of faith, but then they realized some sort of like health benefits, or like, dang, this is actually a pretty good, this is like a good way to like clean our systems out,
You
you know?
know,
Maybe.
I
And then it
mean,
just became,
Islamic people
yeah,
have really good they
discipline.
have some really good
Yeah.
habits. Like, they're really good about hand washing,
Yes.
you know? And so it's funny that, like, most Islamic nations didn't have the plague like
Oh, is
us,
that true?
unwashed. Yeah. Yeah, they didn't go through that because they were cleaner than we were. At the time
Wow.
when the plague was huge, we believed that bathing was bad and that's how you got shit was from bathing.
Yeah, that's true. Cause,
So, we were always stinky and nasty and
oh
yeah.
man. Well, it was just, yeah, they just didn't know how. Like somebody figured out cleanliness on one side, and on the other side, somebody messed up and they put some like dirty water in a wound or something, and they,
Well, cholera was a thing too.
yep.
That's because we didn't know what to do with our shit,
Oh yeah.
literally.
Yeah. Dang, it's weird. It's weird looking back at like ancient technology, and how in some societies there was, sewage systems, and that in other places they're just like throwing their poop in the street. Doesn't make any sense.
Oh, yeah, that
But then
was
again,
mostly
like,
us nasty white Westerners.
because the information didn't travel, so wherever there were these places that were kind of like centers of learning, and that
Mhm.
only came about when agriculture got to a point where people didn't all have to be like out working in the fields and
We didn't
everything.
have to be hunter-gatherers anymore. We sort of extricated ourselves from the food chains to some degree,
Yeah.
and, yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see they're starting to uncover more of these literally buried cities,
Yeah,
and they're able to find them through like ground penetrating radar and all that,
yeah.
radar. So over the next 20 or so years, there's going to be some pretty mind blowing discoveries, I feel like.
Well, that is happening on a constant basis in
Yeah.
places like Jerusalem and, Rome, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, they have to in Ireland too. Oh my gosh, Ireland is really going through a lot of that right now because they had, been under the thumb of England for so long that, anything built during the Victorian era, or the Georgian era before Victoria is just starting to be uncovered because they're starting to require that there be some kind of archaeological excavation, digging to ensure that there isn't or is something there when they build a more modern building
Oh
now.
yeah. I mean and that's a really good thing, So they're not
Mhm.
burying history further underground, further
Yeah.
underneath the structure. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're doing the same thing these days where I live.
Hmm.
And I mean, there's a lot of it that has to be done even if you want to take it down a building that is
Yeah.
only 100 years old, which
Yeah.
seems like a lot for us, but in retrospect, in relation to other much older cultures, 100 years
Yeah.
is really nothing.
And you
But
and you're in like Western Canada, is that right?
I live on Vancouver Island, just off the
Yeah.
coast, the mainland coast in Canada. Yeah,
Yeah. So what
and we
yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, well, there's just we have a lot of First Nations things that we discover when we have to do our own archaeological investigations prior to building a new thing or reconstructing it. We also have to take earthquakes into account as well. It's a very
Oh, wow.
seismically active place. Well, we're on the far
Yeah.
end of the San Andreas Fault.
Sure.
So, and that's why the island is here, is because they had a volcano.
Of course.
They had an earthquake big enough to tip this piece of land on its side.
Damn. Damn.
Yeah. So I live on an island that's made out of granite.
Now, what? That's so wild. I remember we kind of because you and I got together because you were so kind to volunteer your time to this project that never really came to light. I was kind of involved in this game jam. I was helping another one of my friends, and I was like, it'd be really cool because he was going to have me work on the sound for this game, and when we were going to get some. We're going to get some really cool voices for this there's this loudspeaker.
The machine, the loudspeaker person.
But sadly, like all those like voice lines that we recorded, we never used it because we canceled the game. But we had a little bit of a conversation there, and I remember you were telling me about kind of where you lived, and there was some interesting things about it. There was something to do with the port there, or maybe it was like how tourists, what tourists go to when they come there.
I think we were talking about how when people come in on the big ships and stuff, like on the cruise ships. Because we are in Canada and so close to the US, a lot of ships either come here to Victoria or go to Vancouver, which is a much larger city, because it's a legal loophole for the way that they employ their people.
Oh.
And because we're considered a foreign port, a ship that stops in a foreign port doesn't have to hire Americans.
Oh.
So they have on the face of the ship, the people upstairs, those people are all, largely Americans. But anyone who works in the food service or the, housekeeping, or anyone who lives in the bowels of the ship the entire time that they're on the ship, they're all largely like, Filipino or some such, developing country,
right,
where they really don't have to pay these people very much money. And because they're living on the ship and they're fed and they have, a place to sleep, they don't really need to buy things for themselves. So all their money that they earn goes home to support families. And so it could be a parent, who lives away from their children for years at a time. It's not uncommon for someone not to see their children for 5 or 10 years.
What? Oh, wow.
I'm not kidding. It's I've heard it from too many people.
I mean, I kind of wonder how they feel about their lives. Like, do they feel like it's a good job? Do they live well? Is it like helping their family a lot? Like all of these things.
It's getting their kids to school. It's getting them fed and clothed. And in an economy where they cannot find the money, make the money that they need at home, it is something that they consider, for them, it's a noble cause. They're extremely dedicated to their families and they'll do whatever they can to support them.
I just wonder, like, how is it chiefly these sort of disadvantaged populations of different countries? Like, how do they recruit them? Do they like, I know from little bit of experience, like my dad ran a harvest crew with my uncle, and they had that business for many years. And there were people who would recruit guys from South Africa, and these were, mostly Caucasian guys that were farmers that lived there. But like the way the money worked, the U.S. dollar is much stronger in South Africa, at least at the time.
Yeah.
So these guys who were farmers, in their off season, they would go and they would do harvest crew because it was like just
because they had the experience, they had the knowledge and the technology at home.
Yep.
But I imagine that because like as you said, the rand is really, really low.
Yeah.
That they would have.
But it's just kind of crazy that there's a specific like recruiter for that, and it's somewhat of a small business, but there's enough demand for it to where somebody does that, and then they take care of getting the people their documentation, because they have to have a visa and they have to be under workman's comp and all these U.S. regulations. But these guys,
and the employer also has a certain amount of expectations that they are, only hiring these people because they can't get Americans to do it, et cetera, et cetera. It's just that we have a nanny thing in Canada, and people who work in like the famous Tim Hortons.
Oh yeah.
Our Tim Hortons employees here are largely from developing countries and probably
Interesting.
come here for the same reason because some recruiter went to get them.
Huh. There's sort of this.
Yeah.
There's sort of these little deals that are going on, but if it improves their life, you really can't argue with it. So they're willing to do the work, and like you said, like it does serve a need for them.
It does.
Yeah. And these guys that came over from South Africa, some of them ended up liking the US so much they would get like an extended visa, and some of them ended up staying here. I know that a few of them had gotten married, met women and got married and all that. So yeah.
Yep. It happens for sure. A lot of people who come here for the same reasons, regardless of the kind of employment that they go into. We also have seasonal workers who work in our farms and things like that in the harvest months, and some choose to stay, and some kind of do it as a circuit because the harvest season will start earlier here than it will in the States. You just have a longer growing season than we do, of course. So they'll come here and do
like
apples
June,
and
July,
strawberries,
stuff like that.
Well, July is a pretty big month, but August and into September for some places, but I mean, you guys have oranges coming out just before Christmas.
Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's not going to be a common thing here.
No. No, it's it's something that kind of goes unreported. But it's all by the books.
But it's
by
necessary.
The way. It's all by the books, and it's necessary. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like we as white Westerners don't like to do those things, and if we did, the amount of money that a lot of the farmers would have to pay for their agricultural labor would create such a scenario where we would have to pay a lot more for the most basic things that we really take for granted.
The system has worked for a long time like this, and there's been movements for workers' rights and stuff like that. But the fact remains, there's always the demand for these low-paying jobs.
Yes, that we at home don't want, but other people in other places, Mexico, throughout Central and South America, they want to come and pick our strawberries for us. So
there you go. And
I'm grateful.
Absolutely. I'm grateful. And maybe and hopefully there will be, and that's maybe some things that automation can help. There's people that want to do these jobs, but should humans be doing all these jobs? There's an argument there, right?
Well, I mean, if we do automate everything, what jobs are there?
Right. Yeah. Then we move more. then we're actually like just maintaining the machines,
Yeah.
Manufacturing the parts for the machines. But the machines will probably get to a point where they can manufacture their own parts, and they'll have like nanny machines that can like fix the machines. It really does turn into like Terminator or something.
I suppose it could.
There's an episode of Black Mirror, which
don't tell me about that
which is basically it's basically like what Amazon will turn into eventually, where there's just like drones going around.
They're taking Asimov further than he could have gone because he didn't predict the technology.
Yeah. Well, let's get into a little bit of your history, and what I like to do on the show is, well, first we covered kind of what your alias is, which is really cool. Actually, like
alias without an alias.
Yeah. Which wasn't going to take too much effort, but your influences, like why you're here, why you're like within the Twitch community, video games, different interests. Obviously you got the role play is like a strong, like
that's the thing.
A strong thing for you. Yeah.
D&D is what started it, really.
Yeah. How did you get started with, like, what are like the origins of your interest in either D&D or Twitch? Like, which one came first? Did you play D&D as a kid?
D&D came long first. I am not a young person. I am in my 40s.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Come on. Okay.
No, it's true.
All right.
I was born in the 70s.
So when did you start playing D&D?
In the 80s.
In the 80s. Wow. During the Satanic Panic era, was there ever Was it after that whole thing, or was it during that?
That didn't really hit Canada.
No?
We're we're not.
Prudes like that? Not prudes like that?
No, we Canada. I don't know. We have largely, I mean, are still to this day the largest population of people who are identify themselves as religious are
Okay.
Catholic. We still have Catholics everywhere and Anglicans. We're a lot more colonial, I think, than the
Hmm.
States remained being. Um, there's a lot of expats here and a lot of British influence, spelling things with a U.
I feel like
Um,
I feel like people that are unaware of the landscape of Canada. By the way, if my mic is too loud for you, let me know.
no, you're
I've
fine.
been trying to match us up a little bit here.
No, you're good. You sound great.
Thank you. But the thing is, like, in Western Canada, it's much different than what it is in Eastern Canada, because, like, isn't correct me if I'm wrong, like, there's like French Canada, like where there's French Canadians,
Mhm,
people who speak primarily French.
mhm,
Where I'm from is in North Dakota, and that's like dead in the center, like Manitoba area, right? That's not
mhm.
dead in the center, but it's central enough, right? And that was
Well, it's considered central Canada.
is it
Manitoba is just like more sort of for the population of the people. Like in the West, we don't have as many people as there are out
okay.
in the East. Yeah.
Okay, so the Eastern Canada is the much more populated area, and then there's like
Oh, yeah.
in Central Canada, it's kind of like rural. There's I know there's a lot of
Yes.
farms around there,
Yes.
a lot of farming communities, and
Mhm.
obviously if you go north, it's basically like Siberia or something. I'm not sure.
It's pretty incredible up there. I don't know if you ever had a chance. I mean, even if you go to Alaska instead of like, you know,
Yeah.
Arctic Canada, it's pretty amazing. The people in Alaska and in the north are an entirely different breed. In Alaska, they don't have to be quite so hardy because they have many more conveniences, many more people.
Mm,
But there are parts of Canada, entire territories.
very remote.
Um, Very remote, some that you can't reach by road because there's muskeg in between, which is just like
Ooh.
peat moss on swamp. So
Whoa.
you can't build a road there until it freezes over. So there are many, many communities that are only reachable in the winter by ice road.
Is that the ice road truckers thing?
That is real. That's real shit.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
not kidding. That
that's
stuff is real.
that is so crazy.
There
Yeah, one of the most dangerous.
tens of thousands
Yeah.
of miles of territory up there that can only be reached
Oh
right
my
by
god!
ice road.
What you got to wonder, like, why, like, these communities have survived, and how and why, you know?
Well, I mean, originally the people themselves, the Inuk, they were all nomadic, and so they didn't have communities. They were
Mm,
nomadic, and they were hunter gatherers and lived that way, and to the point where their physiology has actually changed. There are things that Inuit people can eat that would kill us because it's just too rich in vitamin A, for instance.
whoa!
Yeah, they
Examples of
eat
that, you know?
raw seal
Oh yeah,
liver,
yeah. Raw
like
though. Whoa.
yeah, oh, that's their thing. And it's very, very nutritious, and I it's not for me, you know? But they eat animals who live off of other sea animals, and so it's just compounds, like the same way toxins compound in large mammals. Vitamin A is one of the things that compounds in large, especially predators. Once you go up the food chain, the fish eat the krill, and then the seals eat the fish, and then the polar bear eat the seals. Right. So by the
Yeah.
time you hit polar bear liver, you're at super toxic levels of
Oh yeah.
vitamin A for us.
Crazy. Yeah.
But for them, it keeps them healthy, and they are
Yeah.
a much slimmer, more fit community, and they have very tight knit communities because they have been accustomed to living, a nomadic, very family oriented lifestyle.
Huh.
And now the government came through, as governments do, especially, us people who had our start in England, we all, as imperial people, think that we know the best. And so we
Right.
took all these people who were nomadic, just plunked them down in this randomly chosen place
Oh God.
and said, here, this is where you live now.
It didn't give them a
And
choice, really.
no, not really. No. In our infinite wisdom, we've done a lot of things that are pretty horrible.
Didn't want to just leave their little villages and communities be, the things that have been going on for hundreds, thousands of years.
Yeah.
They felt like they knew best because
Yes.
they're in charge and they want to keep people, quote unquote, safe or whatever.
And they also we want to educate your children, so we're going to take them away.
Oh yeah, the education is great for them. Yeah, it's great.
Yes, we're going to put them in these residential schools. No, we took them away and put them in residential schools.
Oh man!
And the last of the residential schools in Canada did not close down until the 80s.
Okay.
And it's an extremely sad, very, very horrible thing that we did to generations of First Nations people in our country.
Oh, it's too bad.
Deplorable, and it has passed a lot of pain down the line and has created difficulty for people to have a good idea of what a good family is and how to be a good parent, because we've taken that away by putting them in these schools, shaving their head and beating them for practicing their own traditions.
Oh my God.
And so there'll be children who come and are not allowed to speak their language from home. They go home and they can't communicate with their families anymore. And then you have these children who they're shunned by white people because they're not white. And then they're shunned by their own communities because they're not really their community anymore. They're just this strange hybrid that don't feel like they belong anywhere. And that's the legacy that we've left. And it's deplorable. It's something that I didn't even know about for most of my life. It was a very...
So how did this come to light for you? Was it through through the internet, through reading about it? Yeah. Researching.
And people, just talking to people about it. And I mean, my grandfather lived on this, I live on an island and it's a pretty substantial island. It's not huge. I just call it my little island all the time. But anyway, there are hundreds of smaller islands between us and the mainland and on the other side as well. And my grandfather lived on one of those tiny little islands. And I think it was probably maybe 5 miles by 10 miles or something like that at the most.
Whoa.
Just a little tiny place. And it was beautiful. But there was an island that we sailed past on the ferry every time we went there. And I was told that I couldn't go there because they would kill me because I'm white.
Okay.
Yeah. Complete fallacy.
Okay. It was
based on racism.
Just based on racism, basically. They were just afraid of them because they're a different color.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was just disinformation passed down the line because they just didn't understand the people, so they didn't want to.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly. And yeah, so sailing every time I went to my grandfather's, I did not know, and I found later, and it really broke my heart a lot to know that there were children my age when I was 6 and 5 and 7 and 8 and 9, 10, sailing to my grandfather's island. I was sailing past children my own age who were locked up in a school.
Oh,
because their skin color was different than mine.
Wow. Yeah, and what did all of you went over it already, but what did all of that do? Did it assimilate all of these peoples to
I know that was the goal, but I mean, did it? I don't know.
It seems like it did way more harm than good, and I don't know really what good it did. From what it sounds like.
Well, we've had a whole tribunal in Canada, an entire, years worth of information being gathered and people telling their stories, to gather information about the truth of what happened to so many people that most of us, in the Western culture didn't know about or didn't care enough about to do anything about it. My parents didn't I don't think my parents really knew what was going on either. It was just, I don't know whether people tried to tell them it was none of their business or nobody questioned it and nobody knew about it really. And it's, I don't know. And it's not an excuse. Why didn't we? Why didn't we know what was happening to all these children for generations?
That's
There were, grandmothers and grandchildren and great grandchildren, who had all gone to residential schools.
oh wow.
And there were so many deaths and so many children, the same age as my children, who were committing suicide because of what they were going through. Yeah.
That is
So
just
yeah.
it's like
So we're having now.
I mean it's like genocide level almost, like
It is practically. It's at the very least cultural genocide, the
yeah.
very least. But, a lot of children didn't make it and, or were, came out with PTSD or
Mm.
any number of,
So
mental illnesses.
like what steps is the government going to take to help heal this, or are they just going to try to
Well,
sweep it under the rug or
I
put a
I think
band-aid on it?
I
Like
think there's a lot of Band-Aids going on, but
mm,
there are a lot of people who genuinely want to do something about this. And we've been going through this process called the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, to start at the very start, listening to people's stories. And thousands of people have come forward to tell their story about what happened to them during the time that they were in these schools, or when their children were in the schools, or people really need to tell their stories, and that at least has started. I mean, I don't think that very many people in the First Nations communities feel like anything has come close to fixing this. I know that they've put out some money, how it's like a lawsuit and you give
right.
everybody a few grand and say, there you go, I've paid you now. I
Mm,
think that more has been done in the last term, and this term of our current prime minister, who everybody thinks is this gorgeous guy.
right.
Everybody's seen Justin Trudeau. More has been
Yeah.
done during his terms. I don't know what's enough. I mean, I can't be the one that decides what's enough. It wasn't me that
Yeah,
was
of
affected.
course. So where could people go to read more about this? Like is there
Well, I mean, there's the Truth and Reconciliation Commission
there you go.
in Canada is one place to start, but you can look at a map of Canada with all the different First Nations territories on it, and you can click on that and go and see what they have to say.
Okay.
That's what you want to hear
Yeah.
about. You don't, I don't want to give you my perspective.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's not my business to tell, it's not my story to tell. I can only give you an outsider's knowledge
Yeah.
and tell you how shameful I feel.
I mean, I've only heard murmurs. This is the first time I've really heard to the extent of what you're saying. A lot of the things that I've heard as far as like, crimes against First Nation people in Canada is the disadvantaged women that have gone missing over the
Yes.
last,
Yep.
20 years or
Missing
so.
and murdered Indigenous women. Yes. Many,
Yes.
many. Like there's,
Or
I think only a
Indigenous or
small
First Nation. I
fraction.
never really know how to.
I think you have to ask individuals what they prefer.
Yeah.
You know, I still use the term First Nations because that's what I
Gotcha.
grew up with. Although
Gotcha.
there's some people who prefer Indigenous,
Right. I
and
did.
if I'm offending anybody, I apologize
Yeah.
for my
Well, like,
my
yeah.
settlers terms.
Yes, of course. I just remember I see these documentaries on it, and there's people that are setting up volunteer organizations to search for these women and try
Mhm.
to get people prosecuted for women being murdered and dumped in rivers and all of
Yeah.
its horrible crimes that really it's like it reminds me of how hearing about in like maybe 60s and 70s when kids who ran away from home and if they were like sex workers or something and they were murdered or even like like adult women murdered in cities if they were sex workers, they would kind of just like not really investigate the crimes very far. They're
That's
like
exactly how that's exactly how it is, and they just assume that that's what's going on with any First Nations child who runs away. Oh,
mm,
they must have gotten involved with drugs. They got
mm.
involved with prostitution. There's nothing we can do about it because they're just off being prostitutes and drug dealers.
I mean, in your opinion, is some of the end result of these tragic ends to these women's life? Is it a result, possibly a result of the system that they were in, like
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it's undeniable. I mean, even if not every one of them was a victim in that sort of way, I can only assume that a large majority of women who have, I mean, people don't become drug addicts because they've had a happy life.
yeah,
You know, if you, there's studies and statistics about the people who are homeless and who are addicted and homeless. Uh, I think that the number is something like 85%
wow,
of people who are homeless or drug addicted or both have been the victims of severe childhood trauma.
yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
And so I think, that's another thing that I feel like we should have a whole lot of compassion about, because people don't end up in those places because they just didn't try hard enough. you know,
Yeah,
uh, a lot of people have a lot of shit to overcome,
I
and
mean,
sometimes they chase that comfort in. It's a pretty human thing to do. If
mhm.
you feel uncomforted in your life, to seek comfort in some way that may be a maladaptive sort of, you know, behavior, to try to find a way to, be comforted, and you end up chasing the dragon or whatever it is. It's,
Your life is so out of control that
yeah.
you find things that you can control. Like you find like little pieces of comfort. And for those of us who have a roof over our head, and that we might find our comfort in food or television or the internet.
D&D.
Yeah, D&D, like these us privileged
Yeah.
people, we have our little comforts. But if you're without a
Uh-huh.
house and you're on the street, like where is your comfort come from? I mean,
Exactly.
Jesus,
Yeah.
it's
And
a
how did you
it's a
get there in the
cycle.
first place?
Yeah,
How are you somebody that lost your home? Because everybody
yeah,
starts with something, and then things
mm,
happen, a series of events that ends up in
yeah,
you being kicked out of whatever home you were in.
yeah,
And once you're out, it's so hard to get back into housing once you're out of it.
yeah.
You know,
We wouldn't
like
know
you
what it's
have to
like. Yeah.
first and last rent,
Mm.
like you need to pay for the hookups of all your utilities
How
and
about
things like that.
how about the fact that people like the criminal system will will arrest someone for a small charge, and then the person doesn't make their court date or something, and then they're fined and put in prison, and
Mhm,
then they're spit back out with debt,
mhm,
can't find a
mhm.
place to go. They got to find
No,
a way
because
to
'cause you're a
make
criminal
money,
now.
and now it's harder to
Yep.
find a job. And then
Mhm,
the cycle is just like, well, you feel disrespected, you feel like you're just discarded. So then what is
mhm.
your attitude like? Do you feel like you want to be a productive member of society,
Well,
or are you
and look
just going to lean on, yeah, who knows.
Yeah, but and also have a look. It's the same in Canada as in the States. I mean, the percentage of people who are of First Nations population in culture, it's much larger than it is for us white folk.
Hmm.
And down in the States, I know it's the same thing for people of color to be the largest percentage of people in the prison system.
Yeah, and why is that, do you think? It's like, well,
'Cause, well, guess who runs the shit, man?
yeah, yeah.
Like yeah,
There is
yeah.
hope, though. There is hope. I mean,
Well
I don't know if you've heard of drug court. It's like a separate type of
uh-huh.
it's a separate way of being prosecuted for nonviolent crimes,
Mm,
what do you need when you're on drugs? You need to be in prison where you're around savages and like other people who are going to enable you. And yes, drugs do make it into prison. And
mhm.
does it cure you? I mean, you go through like horrible withdrawal symptoms, and then you're not really treating the core issue.
Yeah, yeah, I mean
But in drug court, they're put through like either rehab, or they're put through, very strict, like for example, a celebrity, Artie Lang. I don't know if you know who he is. He was on Howard Stern show. He's a
okay,
comedian. Yeah, he's been around
okay.
forever, and he's famously a serious drug addict. He was on heroin and cocaine, and a lot of his like contemporaries have like died of overdosing. And
Of
some
course.
reason, this guy is he's still alive, and he's going through drug court right now, and he has to do a pee test. Like, I don't even know,
Wow.
like at least once a day,
Wow.
and he's like meeting, or maybe it's not once a day, but it's at least like maybe like 5 times a week, and that's pretty intense. And they're giving him like a support structure to actually like rehabilitate versus just like locking him up in a cage. Whereas let's say you're like dealing drugs, that's a different thing, but just like using,
Yeah, I think we're making effort. I think, there are systems in Canada where we are making an effort. Um, for instance, there's a place in Vancouver where they do have, of course, a lot of IV drug use and a lot of opioids and things like that. And they've actually started a prescription heroin group.
Okay.
It's only by a study right now, but basically they are a group of doctors got together. They decided they wanted to do this trial and see if they could help people through their lives by giving them actual heroin that they were able to safely inject twice a day at an office, a safe injection site. And what they've done is they've given them a maintenance dose of heroin twice a day. And these people have maintained housing. They can work.
Yeah.
Just because you're on heroin doesn't mean you can't, you're not capable of working. So, but these are all very long-term drug users who have been through the rehabilitation like several times.
Yeah.
And just never managed to make it through.
Yeah, because boy, if it's not, I mean, like how do you can't just like kick it,
No.
you can't get on your own. It's pretty rare. Like you need help and
it's compassionate.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of money that we spend on a program like that versus the amount of money you spend just charging somebody and putting through the judicial system for doing exactly that, just injecting themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it gets right to the core issue. Let's just assume it's just using. It's not like other petty crimes or maybe violent crimes and other stuff associated with it. Even if it was petty crimes, there can be like probation and stuff for things like that and community service.
But when you need to supply yourself with heroin twice a day, every day,
I mean, what do you do?
The crime is going to go hand in hand with that.
That's that. Yeah, you know what? Being someone who hasn't been through that, I forget about that part. Yeah, even like guys in the 80s and guys and gals in the 80s that were addicted to cocaine, they had these like a couple $100 a day cocaine habits. Well, how do you get that money? You got to figure out. You got to hustle.
You have to start dealing it yourself.
Yep.
Selling it to your friends just to support your own habit.
Yeah, that's what ended up happening.
Get into something worse.
Yeah.
And then you end up going into debt to the wrong people and bad things happen and it's just a big snowball.
It's pretty bad, but like you and I say, there is hope and things are actually moving toward a more compassionate way of actually fixing people to where they can be productive. Do we really want people? Do we really want like millions of people locked up in cages?
No, we don't. But what we need to start with, though, what it all boils down to is we need to look after children. If you make sure that parents and families have enough money and don't have to live in poverty, that they can have a quote unquote normal childhood, you end up with fewer people who are unhealthy, who have all kinds of medical issues, dental issues. Like dental issues are freaking expensive, man.
Yes.
One trip in an ambulance down in the States, that costs so much money.
$10,000.
Okay. You know what mine costs?
Like
80.
80. Wow.
$80.
Yeah.
For having this happened a year ago. I had 2 years ago actually. I had a viral infection. I had a viral bronchitis thing. I have asthma. It compounded my asthma. I couldn't breathe. They sat in my living room for 45 minutes giving me oxygen. Took me to the hospital. Fast tracked me in through the hospital system. I had to stay there overnight. Blah blah blah. $80. Thank you very much. Yep.
It just seems like these the political systems, the 4-year cycle, it's this pendulum swings back and forth. We can't decide on something. Finally, we've gotten to a point where I feel like someone is going to have to take action and fix this before we erupt into some sort of a civil war, because people are fed up. I'm fed up with not being able to afford health insurance, like good health insurance.
It's crazy to me.
It's
the
wild.
American health system is the most expensive health system in the world.
Yeah.
And it's because everything is for profit. Canadians, yeah, we have to wait a little bit longer for elective. Let me just, make sure I put the emphasis on elective surgery.
Sure.
We wait a little longer for sure. But any kind of emergency is handled every time. Any kind of surgery I need that is for medical reasons, I get, and we all do. Because if it's for medical reasons, then we should be looking after our folks. And that's kind of the philosophy.
It
And
goes with that. Yeah. I mean,
I'm hoping that
go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, that's okay. No, I'm just hoping that transfers and that continues. There's been a movement more and more to support children through schools, through all kinds of things, to make sure that they have all those basic needs met.
Mm.
And they're fed, they're looked after, they're educated. They know that they're going home to somebody that loves them. That kind of thing. Like, that's a real thing. And I think if we can continue to maintain that, we'll have fewer kids slip through the cracks. We'll just end up having fewer people who are unhealthy, who have trauma, who have all these things that lead up to these things that are life-threatening, life-damaging, horrible things that end them up in the judicial system.
And what's true is that there's never going to be a utopian society. There's never going to be something without issues, people that do slip through the cracks, people that are legitimately like mentally insane, things that occur there, and people that act up, but there needs to be a more like even way of dealing with this, not just throw everybody in a cage or leave all the mentally insane people on the street to be, those who belong, who really need help should get it,
And, I feel like, I really, it sounds like a commercial for Canada, this whole fucking thing. But I strongly feel that we have been making steps in that direction.
Well, you had a head start. we got to do something.
Yeah.
So I saw this on a freaking. I'll be honest. I saw this on a bumper sticker. So I thought I would share this with you and see how you feel about it. Now, this is what people do around here in Colorado is they share their opinions on bumper stickers.
Okay.
I had never seen someone with this one before, but it kind of ties into what you were saying. And I think I saw it maybe this morning. It said, children that are treated well behave well. And I thought, I don't know. I thought about that while I was driving, and I thought, well, I feel like that's way too general.
Yeah. Children.
How do you I needed to ask more
I have my
qualifying
own
questions. Yeah.
I have my own, and I think I treat them pretty good, but they don't always. We had to have some serious conversation at the mall tonight during Christmas shopping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it more? Is it more about just being present and listening and getting them to communicate with you, like being open to an extent, right?
Yeah, and I think really it's just another part of the golden rule. Children are developing small humans, and if we don't treat them the way we want to be treated, then guess what? You kind of need to reassess yourself. You're the adult in the situation.
Well, how much of it do you feel like they model themselves after you?
There are some things they do, and some things that they were just born with. I know, and here's my example for this. My oldest child, she just turned 11. At the age of 4, we were watching the news, and it was during the Syrian crisis.
Okay.
And the news was displaying a family walking down some railroad tracks carrying what we would call, plastic grocery shopping bags, the kind you get at the supermarket.
Sure.
And she's asked me why they're carrying the groceries on the railroad track. It looks pretty dangerous. And I said, "Oh, honey, those aren't their groceries. That's everything they own." And she just kind of couldn't quite understand. She said, "Well, why is that? And where are they going?" And I said, "Well, they live in a place where there's war and there's bombs and people are blowing up their houses, and it's their own government, and they have nowhere else to go but away somewhere. They don't know where, they don't know how safe they're going to be, but they just have to try to get away and escape. And that's what they're doing walking on these tracks." And she just burst into tears. She was 4 and
Oh,
still already had the empathy to recognize
wow.
that this was a really serious situation. And her birthday is in December. And what we do for birthday parties is um, we what they call a toonie party. So instead of getting a gift from all your pals, you get a card, and inside the card there'll be two Canadian $2 coins, which we call toonies.
Okay.
One toonie will be for a charity of the child's choice, and the other one will be for the child to buy something for themselves. So you have 10 kids there, you get a bunch of coins,
Yeah,
and
sure.
you're not expecting a bunch of families to pay for a bunch of stuff that, it just we don't need
Huh.
it. We don't need
Yeah.
all the toys. We got grandparents and,
I mean,
you know,
that's really smart. So
it's a smart thing.
how have the
So
kids how no, sorry, go ahead. I think you were
Well,
gonna get to
her
it.
reaction at the time when she chose the charity. She always has chosen the charity. She chose the Immigrant and Refugee Society
Wow.
because of those children. And
Yeah.
then when it came to dividing the money, I put in the little baggie, and I matched her charitable contributions. So we had a little baggie of the charity, little baggie for the kid, and she just hands them both to me and says, "This is for the children."
Oh, man.
Because they need it more than I need a toy.
Oh my god.
4th birthday.
That is
And she has done the same every year since.
oh my god.
And this was not me, never asked, never recommended. This is my child who was born with the empathy to realize there are people out there who are not as lucky as we are.
How
And
does
we
that make
always need to be
yeah.
grateful for that. And we always need to extend ourselves to be able to help when we can.
I think she has modeled herself after you a little bit. How does that make you feel? How does that make you feel like that she's been so like advanced emotionally at a young age?
I'm pretty proud that, and I really don't feel like I can take any credit for this. This is something I have to give her all the power in the world and recognize that she is such a good human being and she
Mm.
always has been,
And then
that isn't something you can teach. You can teach people that all these other people are starving and homeless and sad and,
mm.
and are in a terrible way.
And just be thankful for what you have, and that's all you
Yeah,
say, like
exactly.
and
But
that was kind of the
instead,
message that I got, but yeah.
yeah, but instead she found the empathy within herself to want to give what she had to somebody she didn't know.
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
And so,
that's pretty powerful, and
yeah,
now she knows that she has the power to make a difference.
yes. Yep. Like, who knows what that, like,
And
anything came up to, $40 plus 40 plus 80, because I had to match
yeah,
it.
of course, but I
So,
mean,
100 and something dollars, what a 4-year-old's level is it's a
in
lot of money.
in that sacrifice for others
Yeah.
is important, the empathy and maybe even like a call to service, like wanting to volunteer and stuff like that in the future. It might be
Yes.
something that she could
Yeah.
get involved in. But
Yep. I've taken her to the homeless camp.
okay.
We had a homeless camp here for people who, like, we just didn't have enough shelter space, didn't have enough affordable housing. People are on the street. They just decided to get band together and made a movement out of it. And bless them all. They
Yeah,
got,
that's awesome.
they achieved a goal,
Yeah,
you know?
cool.
And so we went down there and talked to those folks and just to ask how, what their lives were like.
Hmm.
And there were some 18-year-olds and 16-year-olds in there. And
Oh,
that was a pretty powerful moment to realize that
yeah.
these are children. These are children who are fleeing their homes. So, yeah.
And maybe if they get a little bit of help, maybe get a little leg up, they can get established and start
Yeah.
living life on their own terms, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what did you do to get here? How can I learn from this situation so that I don't
Sure.
end up here too?
Oh yeah,
Because they're
definitely.
by the grace of God, right? Like, I mean, I'm not a religious person, but that is a serious thought in my head all the time. There, but by the grace of God go I.
Now
Yep.
you've mentioned before. Well, you kind of mentioned. Well, you mentioned right there that you're not really religious, but you've mentioned that you kind of were raised. You were raised like Irish Catholic. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that. And well, but some. Do you feel like some of the stuff that you learned kind of gave you a bit of a moral compass, or how do you find like?
You know what? Like, I mean, I left the Catholic Church purposely in my youth, because they had things that I just refused to believe. I could not support. I could not put my time into a place that told me that because people are gay,
Oh
I
yeah.
can't hang out with them, or I can't be, part of their lives, and it's wrong and it's this and that. So and that and transubstantiation. I was told that I had to believe in
Oh
transubstantiation
yeah, sure.
in order to take the Eucharist.
Well,
And I'm just like,
explain to people what that is if they don't
okay.
know.
Well, everybody's seen you go up and you drink the little bit of wine, and they give you that horrible cracker that sticks to the roof of your mouth. That's called the Eucharist. And that you're supposed to believe as the priest passes it to you, turns into Jesus, and when you put it in your mouth and you swallow it. Like literally,
The body of
you're
Christ.
supposed to
Body of
believe that
Christ.
it is the body of Christ and that is the blood of Christ.
Yeah.
It tastes like a really horrible, shitty cracker, and the
Yeah.
wine is just nasty, and they water it down.
Oh yeah.
And you're supposed to believe that it changes into that in you.
It changes
And-
into money. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, yeah, they're pretty rich. They do pretty well for themselves. Yeah. But no, I couldn't believe it. So it was like, okay, I'm done. Bye. And I got told on by the sister at the church, for having gay friends, and then Father wanted to talk to me. I had to go to talk to Father John.
Oh man.
So I had my conversation and I left the church.
Well, I mean, how did your parents feel about that? They just like allowed you to not.
My mom, no, my dad didn't care because he wasn't his family wasn't Catholic in the beginning,
Okay.
but the guy always goes with the woman's religion, and
Is that how it goes?
yeah.
Okay.
And because my mom was divorced, she wasn't allowed to take the Eucharist either.
Huh.
Unless she went unless she appealed to the Vatican and had her marriage annulled and made all of us bastards. She could never take the Eucharist.
There's
again.
like parts of the Catholic religion that like surprise me. And by the way, the thing about like the man taking the woman's religion, I guess I've just not been exposed to that as much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess my dad. What was my? That is funny because I think that my dad maybe went to the Lutheran church until he. That is what? Okay.
Isn't that interesting?
And then we went to the evangelical church when he married. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Lutherans are a lot more chill. Lutherans are pretty chill, cool people.
Yeah. Our honestly, like through the church that I went to, just it really wasn't. But the thing was, it's such a small community. If the situation presented itself, would gay people be allowed in the church? I don't even know.
Yeah.
I feel like it was like not burn that bridge. Maybe burn that bridge. Cross that bridge when you come to it. I don't know. It was just kind of like don't talk about it type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's been too much of that in the past.
Yeah.
People here, at least in Canada, we're not taking that shit no more. I mean, we only recently put into our constitution that you cannot discriminate against somebody by their gender identification. They can't. So somebody's transgendered, you cannot speak hatefully against them anymore.
Yeah.
And you cannot discriminate against them based on that. And I'm super freaking proud of that. That is a thing.
How do you feel about some of the cracking down on language and stuff like that, though?
What do you mean?
Well, I don't really understand a lot of it, but I think in some universities this is just more like within universities. I think they were kind of they were really like strongly encouraging professors to call people by their preferred pronouns.
Yes.
Yeah, and then when people refused to, they were
that's misgendering somebody, and that is a discriminatory thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
If I walk up to you and tell you, "Hi, my name is Shalom, and I'm a woman," that is how you should talk. That's what you should call me.
Okay.
Until at least a point where it comes, in our friendship where you can call me a stupid name, like we have nicknames for each other or whatever. No, they have a human right to be respected as the gender with which they identify.
Do you think that it could possibly be a slippery slope though with the government being in control of speech and compelling people to not use certain words? Or
you know what, the government is making people do the right fucking thing. Do you know what I mean? Like you shouldn't be allowed to have that kind of, like, here in Canada, we instead of protecting free speech, we protect people from hateful speech.
But
the difference.
But who determines like where the line is drawn when it comes to hate speech? Like I'm all for treating people with respect. You want to be called a certain thing, that's cool. But then like when you start like clamping down on what people can and can't say, it's just, I don't know, like you guys have a different determinate, like you guys really don't like free speech isn't necessarily a thing in Canada, so it's like a different world up there.
Yeah, we protect people from negative speech.
Okay.
Instead of giving you the automatic right to say whatever you want. And the thing is like, I hear people proselytizing about that and saying that that all this free speech stuff, there's a lot of things that you just don't have a fucking right to say.
Sure.
Like we've already, and even in the States, there are things you can't say. You cannot deny the Holocaust.
Okay.
You cannot say bomb in an airport.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like that is protecting people from your being a stupid idiot.
Of course.
But
and
from saying something that is hateful to people.
In those cases, it's the obvious intent is to harm or is to cause panic and stuff like that. There's obvious reasons why that is.
Right.
Now, couldn't you apply those same sort of reasonings behind like the intent with the speech when it comes there? Like if it's
an accident, if you misgender somebody by accident, okay, that's fine. But if you do it on a serial, like if you continuously do it, you're obviously not making any freaking effort,
right?
And you need to change your shit.
But what is the punishment for that? How severe?
It can be anything from you going to the Human Rights Tribunal to like you can lose your job if you are a professional, and I think that's justified. You
do.
I do 100% think that's justified.
Man, I don't know where I stand.
I'm hardcore. I'm fanatical about that.
I don't know how I feel
in feminism itself, there are feminists who believe that we should not be including transgendered women in feminism. And I think that's total horseshit. Just because, I know people who are on that journey or have been through that journey and have come out the other side and are strong and capable and have faith in themselves and they're courageous and they're, but they still face hate speech on a regular basis. And it's stupid. It's just dumb.
Yeah.
Why can't somebody choose those things for themselves? Why is it anybody else's right to tell them that they can't?
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. I don't have a whole lot. I definitely don't relate, and I definitely am pretty misinformed. Not misinformed, but ill-informed when it comes to feminist issues and like I'm trying to become more informed on these things.
Well, men can be feminists,
Yeah, of course.
You don't have to be a chick to be a feminist.
That's right. And hey, like when it comes to like women's rights, it's like I'm all for it. When it comes to like transgender rights, I don't know a whole lot, but hey, right. you choose what you do. Like I'm all.
I know a child that went to the school with my daughter, starting in kindergarten, and she never ever wanted to wear girls' clothes because she didn't feel that was her. She was convinced that she just was given the wrong parts when she was born, and that wasn't her. And now so now we call him and he's not able to go through any of the things that change your body or anything like that. That's against the law.
Good.
But we have therapists out there. We have psychiatrists who are specifically trained to identify that this is a genuine thing.
Okay.
And then will allow so that when that child turns 13, when their bodies start to change, you can buy them some time to continue to think about it by suppressing the sex creating hormones. Okay. So this child won't grow breasts, won't have a period. etc., because they're going to stop that from happening. This child will stay smaller. And, there are other considerations to take in, things to take into consideration. But this child is being supported and is much less likely to take their own life.
Yeah.
Because the number of gay or transgendered children committing suicide is not acceptable to me.
Agreed. And there's a couple of things that I would say, and these are just maybe just ill-informed opinions or whatever, like, or maybe spot on, who knows? But when there's a kid who's like, exhibiting kind of like abnormal patterns of behavior for their whatever gender, right? Like you would say, like you said, like a girl who doesn't, maybe a girl that doesn't want to play with dolls, like you kind of like the parents just like let the kids act how they act. They're not like forcing them to like fall into those gender roles. Like you have to play with Barbies, you have to wear dresses, all these things, just because you have to look like a girl. So I'm all for that, And I was glad that you said that the kids aren't like immediately going through like hormone therapy when they're kids. But and here's my second point, which I think that you'll probably agree with. People that are gay and transgendered in that, do you really think that that's like, you think that that's like a safe path? Like that's something that's like,
who's going to choose that for themselves?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like who is going to choose that for themselves? It's a much harder path. You're putting a target.
It is.
You're putting it. You're basically putting yourself in such a smaller sector of people that you would. Yeah, you're in the like 5 to 10% of the population versus like everybody else, right? I don't know what the statistics are on that, but
I think 15% of the population is gay.
Okay.
And then a much smaller percentage of that are people who are transgendered. Yeah.
So as long as like, and who am I to say these are just opinions. Like if like, and I don't have kids and I don't really, I have very few friends who can be considered trans, but like I feel like as long as the person isn't going to regret it by like somebody like almost like forcing or like convincing them that they are, and they really
it's basically that I have never heard of that happening. Like of course any parent is going to be like, come on now, do you really? And it comes out at a very young age that children say, I'm not a boy, I'm a girl. I'm not a girl, I'm a boy. You know what I mean? That comes out at a very, very young age because children have no freaking filter. They're going to be honest as hell with you about all that shit.
Has it been proven, like, how often and, like, how often kids have said that and how often they do end up, like, either wanting to be trans or who come out as trans? Like, maybe, the kids now that are growing up, it seems to be more of a prevalent thing. It's becoming more.
Well, it's just because now people are recognizing it and allowing it and not making them feel like they're mentally ill.
I feel like it's an unreported part of history that I just don't know about.
Oh, it is. It's huge. I mean, First Nations people for thousands of years have had people who are two-spirited, they call them, if they're gay, or two-spirited if they become trans people who wear different clothes because it reflects who they are, and they are recognized as gifted. Right? They are gifted this extra spirit by the Great Spirit, and they were, venerated, and were often like, medicine people or, storytellers or a number of really valued roles in society until we came along.
Yeah.
Like you can look at historical pictures, photographs of someone in women's regalia who you look at and you recognize had been born a male.
I think that we had just much more pejorative terms for people who decided that they really didn't belong in their, it was like, transvestite or these other terms that were used for people. And they were kind of like, they were considered like sick or something, like they were just.
Yeah. Pray away the gay.
That works, right? I've parts of my family that are like, I have 2 gay cousins, and I attended one of their weddings last year, and my uncle, who is it would have been his niece that got married. You know, he attended the wedding, but his wife didn't because, you know, all these excuses. But
Right.
really, it's like this hardcore in the bubble conservative Christian thing. Like,
Mhm.
you know, before she got married, there things were uttered like, "Oh, I hope that she will meet a nice man someday," and like, you know,
Yeah.
all these things.
Just didn't meet the right one.
I thought she was gonna like she's gonna grow out of it, right?
Yeah, it's just a phase. But here, here's one of the hardest things that I find with that whole idea, that whole ideology. It's not even doctrinal anymore. According to Christianity, Christ Jesus died, and and you were supposed to ignore all the shit before it, right?
Yeah.
Like you were supposed to once he was around and died, you were supposed to follow the things that he taught only from then on. And yet somehow our modern Christianity, like you said, goes and cherry picks all these things out of the Old Testament and the rest they throw away. We can't sell our daughters into slavery anymore, can we? Even though the
Nah.
Bible says that it's okay. As long as we sell her to somebody that isn't blah, blah, blah. We can still buy slaves, but, it's only if they're not of our race. Like that's old shit that we decided or that was supposed to be erased when Jesus was born, right? But
Mhm.
the stuff about being gay and all that kind of stuff is still being cherry picked out of the Bible.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally.
It's not New
And
Testament stuff.
it really, this is just from my perspective growing up religious, and in the small community we were a total bubble. If there was someone of a different race, it was like people were kind of accommodating but also kind of looking at them out of the corner of their eye because like
Casual racism.
you kind of look a little like you don't look shifty or dress nice, but like
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
keep my eye on you. But it's like
Casual racism for
what I'm
sure.
getting at is like things that are different make people uncomfortable. And if you're in this bubble, you never really mix with other people to where what I mean by mix is just like just fucking talk to them.
Mhm.
Kids don't grow up with kids with different races in their schools. So they don't think they relate, but you know what? They probably do because they're all human. So, and we didn't have, I have one gay friend growing up in high school, and he definitely was in the closet the whole time, but we
Of
kind of knew.
course. But it's because one of the biggest pejorative terms that we used, back in the day to insult somebody, it was even if they weren't, just call them a fag, and that just makes them
Yeah.
feel bad.
Yep.
It,
Oh yeah, we had that going on for sure. I mean,
yeah,
even into my 20s. I mean, it was still around gaming communities and stuff. It was still
yeah.
pretty
Just
prevalent.
use the word fag, and it doesn't even
And
necessarily
it didn't mean, oh, you're gay. It meant just whatever. It meant that
right.
you're kind of just you're a wuss, right? That's kind of what it meant.
Yeah, or it would even see this. There have been times when I've tried to champion the word pussy because people use female body parts as a negative connotation.
Yeah. Well, you can
The
call people a
smaller,
dick. You call people a dick, like we don't care.
true. Yeah,
But
but
I
it's
know
funny because
things aren't even on both sides. Like,
no. It's
yeah.
not even a feminist. It's not even a feminist thing at this
Uh-huh.
point. For me, thinking it's really funny that they use that word,
Mm.
considering a woman's vagina like shoots out babies and is the most resilient piece of our entire anatomy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're using
Bounces
it wrong,
back.
man. You're doing it
Boom.
wrong.
Yeah. No. But I'm trying to finish my point, and then I want to go back to something else,
Okay.
and then
Okay.
we're actually going to talk about like the thing that we initially started that's like an hour ago. But we'll get to that. We'll get to it. This has
Okay.
been a good
We're in the loop.
conversation.
We're in the loop.
So what I was saying about people in bubbles and like
Mhm.
things making people uncomfortable, people are more comfortable to stay in that once they're in it.
Yeah.
And it's just so hard to shake people because it's generational. It's like generational homophobia. It's so
Yes.
wild.
The
But
city
you
that
know
I live
what?
in, that
Yeah.
we have a funny term for Victoria where I live. We call it the velvet rut because you're in a rut, right? You're in a
Yeah.
rut for sure, but it's real freaking comfortable. So you just want to stay there.
Damn. Yeah, totally. I could see that for sure. And I mean, what would I call the place I'm from? I don't know. the wheat belt, the wheat bubble. Grow wheat, stay in the bubble. Go to church.
The cowboy rut.
I mean, we didn't have there wasn't a lot of livestock. It was a lot of farm, like a lot of just open fields.
Why don't we just blame it on the elevation? You get this long-term generational, elevation sickness.
I mean, a lot of this could be solved with just having a mixer, like having a mixer, have all people just give them free food and let them mingle with each other.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Maybe
Oh, that sounds dangerous, but like, like if people feel safe and they feel they're well fed and everything, like what do you really have to worry about? I mean, that's really the genesis of like all of the cultural debates that are going on now. People don't have a whole lot else to be concerned about. There isn't a big issue hanging over all of our heads besides maybe, all of the economical struggles, but people aren't having to flee their homes, besides like natural disasters and things that happen like that. But, now we're actually growing culturally, which is healthy, but there has to be a point where I feel like you don't compel people to the whole compelled speech thing. I just can't get over that. That one I struggle with, because if you're the people that you're putting in charge of setting up the boundaries for these things, I feel like they have ulterior motives.
I don't know. Well, I mean, okay, sorry. You're right. Any politician will have an ulterior motive for anything they do, because the whole plan for being there now is that they get to be there next time.
Yeah,
absolutely. But I think that when the ulterior motive is to do what people really want you to do, and you do it, that usually works out pretty well.
If you give the government that control and they start the line, maybe it's in the middle, and then it shifts so far to the left to where nobody can say anything. That's the dangerous part.
That's not even exclusively a left thing.
I didn't mean the left right thing. I just like the needle's in the middle, and it has to move one way or another, where it like more control that people have and less control. It's like strict or less strict, or however you want to say. It's like, man, I think it's a good start, but I just don't know. Like, can you protect people without compelling speech? Can you somehow determine? Can you determine? I'm sorry, I keep talking over you. I just wanted to finish this, and I want to listen to your thoughts on it. Can you do that and somehow also determine intent of what they're saying, what's dangerous, what's not, and is there a way to do that?
I think the way to please everybody is to protect everybody.
Yeah.
And then if someone is charged with one of those offenses, they go to a tribunal, and it's a human rights tribunal.
What happens at a tribunal?
Well, they talk about everything that led up to it, what was said, the impact of what was said, and then there's some kind of determination made.
Can anybody, like, if you make a complaint, is a tribunal like mandatory? Like, how do they determine?
Well, they review whatever your case is, and I mean, it can be anything. Like, I have a friend, a friend of mine, won her human rights tribunal because a landlord tried to discriminate against her and her family by the number of children they had that they wanted to rent his house. And he decided he didn't want to rent to a family. He wanted to rent to whatever, and discriminated against them without interviewing them based on the number of kids they had. So she took him to the human rights tribunal, and she won.
Of course.
And, and so, but that's exactly what that's for, like there's a procedure where you can weed out all of the,
does this, weed out all of the false reports and stuff like that.
Just like, what are you doing here, pal?
Petty stuff. Petty stuff. Yeah.
Or just like, he said my farts stink, and that's slanderous.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, then it just becomes vindictive and stupid. Like, maybe they did stink.
But Canadians are not by nature litigious people. We don't sue each other. We don't have like huge amounts.
I feel like a media maybe blows this up A lot. It gets overblown a lot, and because it gets clicks or whatever.
But I mean, we have commercials that we see on TV that are American commercials for people that jump in on the class action lawsuit of, this stupid thing. And I mean, I'm sure that everything has affected your life,
yeah,
and I guess in the States, it's probably more necessary because you don't have a medical system that will support somebody through their cancer that they got by using baby powder on their hoo-hoo, you know?
yeah. Oh Jesus.
But there's commercials on TV for that. But the thing is
Yeah.
we will protect and help people medically. You don't have to pay for that shit here.
Is it
So we just
is it
don't have the need.
is it possible for someone to face one of these tribunals for, let's say, like an online insult, if it's like against a Canadian citizen?
Yes, if it's serious enough. I
Huh.
mean, against a Canadian citizen, can we get somebody else from another country in on it, you mean? Like if
Well, no,
you
yeah,
were
yeah.
somebody.
You wouldn't be. That's not where I was going with it, but that is interesting. I don't know if
I don't
there's
know.
any precedent. I don't know any precedent for it. It would have to be pretty serious.
It would have to be
Yeah.
more of a legal aspect than a,
Mm.
you
I
know.
feel like I need to have more like examples of how these have gone, like to have to really like form an opinion. And like, who really cares what my opinion is of it? I don't know, but I'm curious to learn more about the subject. And it's something. It's. I mean, it's something good to pay attention to, because it is. Don't you feel like it is sort of like a sea change when it comes to human rights and things like that?
Absolutely. In my lifetime, there has been
Yeah.
a huge change, and
Mm.
I'm really glad that your country has such an amazing, rich history of people, speaking up for their rights as human beings.
Yeah.
I that's it, that's one of the
And
things that I
people
admire about your
people
fucking
die.
country.
A lot of people have died for for the progress that. And I'm not talking about wars. I'm talking about, like, protests, and
Yeah.
we
Uh-huh.
went through slavery in this country, and
Slavery. We did too, to a certain extent, a very
yeah.
small extent, way back, before it was outlawed here. But yeah, it's we instead went with indentured servitude, which has a
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a fancy name for it, huh?
well, they did get paid, or didn't weren't ever owned or
Right.
something. So it's
Okay.
we can stand on our high horse on that one.
Oh boy. Now, were you born? You were born. You've lived in Canada your whole life.
I was born on this very island,
Okay, gotcha.
and so was my mom and my grandmother and
Yeah.
her father and his father, and yeah, and my children.
Wow.
Yeah,
Are you pretty proud of that? Like, do
I
you?
am.
Yeah.
It's a rare, rare thing. It's a very beautiful piece of the world. It's Vancouver Island is unique in its climate and geology, and culture. Even it's once I don't know once you move something onto an island or some people onto an island, the world goes a little slower and it's okay. Like people from fast busy places sometimes don't really appreciate it because people have a sort of a laid back, yeah, I'll get to that in just a minute kind of attitude. And when you're from here, you're used to it, you don't care. But when you're from a really fast paced place, and
Yeah.
people don't like have things done like bang 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 bang, they get annoyed by it, and they just like, why are these people so slow and lazy? It's
It's a
like, dude,
healthier way to
just
live,
chill.
though.
Exactly. Like,
Anxiety causes ulcers, or not anxiety, but
yeah,
or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, maybe it is anxiety, but all these
I
things,
tell
they
people,
cause problems, man.
yeah, I tell people about things that
Stress.
happen here
Yeah.
all the time, and people don't believe me. Like
Yeah.
I don't lock my door. I don't lock my car. I leave my purse on my seat of my car when I go in the
Oh
store.
man.
I,
Oh man. You'll be in for a rude
like
awakening if you're in the
I,
US,
yeah, I
man.
know. I
We got porch pirates. It's Christmas
Oh
season.
my god, porch pirates, right, I forgot about
That's a
that.
big thing. Everyone's got a camera on their freaking door because
Yeah.
there's people that go around steal packages. Now I saw a video today. It's like ABC News or something, and the police across the country are cracking down. They're putting out these fake packages that have trackers in them.
Oh,
They have like
I
big
saw one guy do a glitter bomb with one.
Mark Rober, I think it was, right?
Oh,
That
that
guy?
was just made me so
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah. And they put like a big stink bomb in it and stuff. Yeah. Yeah, so
I love
we
it.
got
I
that,
love
you
it.
got that, and you got it. It's like much more chill. There's some sort of statistic on the amount of people in a city,
Mhm.
and like the amount of traffic and stuff. Like people walk faster, and
Yeah.
they're just like much more deliberate with what they're doing. They're not like lingering, loitering, taking their time. It's just like everything is go go go. I mean,
Mhm.
look at like a time lapse of New York City or something. It's like,
That's crazy.
yeah, it's a different world.
Time lapse on downtown Victoria would be a little bit different because marijuana
Yeah.
is
Oh, it
legal,
is.
and
Yeah.
people but even before, like, it was legalized okay, the last time I got caught smoking pot
Okay.
by the police was in the '90s,
Mm.
and the policeman came up to me, and he said, "Excuse me, miss, but you're gonna have to go and smoke that somewhere else
It
because
wasn't
people
like
are
it wasn't
complaining."
like if it was your, it would have been like, you drop that roach right now.
No, no,
Get down on the ground.
it was dad cop. Dad cop came down
Uh,
with his thumbs in his pants, just do 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 with the big, like every. I think it's like you get bonus points if you have that big cop mustache.
oh yeah, sure.
So that's what he had, and he was just just nice as
Mm.
pie.
What, he didn't
Like
ride up on a horse? Come on, it's
oh
Canada.
come on, okay, yeah, sure. He rode up on a horse, shiny, sparkly,
Just lean
jingly
into the
bell.
stereotypes. Okay.
Yeah, no, you only wear those for special occasions.
Oh, okay.
The
Yeah.
surge, it's called.
Dude, in my head, what I see is a cop riding a horse, but it's also they're also dressed with like the I don't know, the Mounties have a different
Yeah, the
uniform.
red it's called a red serge. It's that red outfit with the
Yeah,
flat hat and the whole thing,
but it
yeah.
wasn't a flat hat in my head. It was a big puffy hat, like a
Oh,
royal guard for
ooh,
some reason. I don't
ooh,
think
oh,
that's
like
right
the ones
though.
with the tails on them the ones with the giant bearskin hats, like super duper
Yeah,
tall ones, yeah. No, those are in England only, I'm afraid.
yeah. Now we're gonna get into something that we were talking about like an hour ago. Like
Okay.
where all this started. I don't know how it all
Oh,
started,
jeez.
but like
Okay.
how it all started is like you played D&D back in the
Yeah.
80s. I was like,
Yes.
was there satanic panic? No.
If somebody said it's about Satanism, they would say, "Interesting."
And
What does that mean?
we're just so scared in this country. We were scared. My stepmom, this was after my dad married my stepmom because my mom had passed when I was really young. I don't really remember much of her. I don't know where she would have fell on the religious spectrum, but
Mhm.
like my stepmom had us pray for our cousin because he
Uh-huh.
played D&D,
Oh,
and
no.
and he was possibly going to be going to the dark side, boys.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah.
where all my friends live. Let's go.
So yeah, I mean, it took until I was like in high school to where I heard my friends were playing. I'm like, my friends aren't Satanists, and did I really believe? Like, I thought I kind of believed that maybe like the D&D handbook at a time was like the book of
A
Satan
little
or
dark.
something.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
wasn't
because
there
I was
wasn't
a
there
kid.
a Tom Hanks movie, like, way back where he actually went crazy? He was, probably schizophrenic, and it's all started with him doing, like, LARPing, like, they did D&D, but they LARPed it, and then
No
he ended up
way.
going crazy and having a coin underneath his pillow that appeared underneath his pillow every day because it was magic. Because his
Wait.
mom he lived at his parents'
Oh
house, and his mom
no.
would get putting this coin back in his pillow for
Oh
the
no. I
future.
don't know. If that's
Yeah,
if
seriously,
that's a movie, we got to look that up after this,
that
and
was
I'll
the
post
thing.
it.
Tom
I'll have to
Hanks
post it in the
D&D
show
movie.
notes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you actually get your start? Like do you have friends that played or
Yeah. Yep. I
okay.
had friends that played, and it just seemed like a cool, fun, nerdy thing to do for the theater
Huh.
kid, you know?
Okay, so you were into theater, you were into kind of
Yep.
performance,
Yep.
you got into playing these characters, and
Yep.
we've gotten an hour and a half into this, maybe a
Yes.
little bit less, and
Uh-huh.
we still haven't explained like how we know each other. We met through a mutual
Playing
friend,
D&D.
Thoglor, playing D&D. Thoglor is this guy who I adore,
Me
somebody
too.
who I met through another streamer on Twitch. This is how it all goes.
Mhm.
It's a cycle. We all get to meet really cool people from around the world,
Yep.
and he ushered me into the world of D&D just real casual. Like, hey, I was like, I don't know, I'm scared, like I don't know anything about this. He's like, it's
Yep.
okay. My campaigns are designed for newer players and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, we can do it. I was really nervous. My first campaign didn't go super well. I was so uptight. But over the years, like I've gotten more comfortable with it. And it is really interesting to put yourself in like outside your comfort zone like that.
Mhm.
And it's not like people who don't understand role play. It's not like total escapism, and it's not like, oh, I wish I was this person, so and all that. It's like it's acting to an extent,
It is.
and then
It's
it's
improv.
exploring your creative side, like outside of yourself, and it's the fantasy is cool. You know,
It
it's
is, it's
not.
super cool. And
Yeah,
like you said, Thog really he makes it so accessible, and he he has remarkable ability to be both like do things impromptu right off the fly. If one of us fucks up a story so badly that he can't do what he was planning, he's just like without you don't even know he's done it. You don't even know because he just says, "Fuck it all, we're gonna go do this," and he doesn't even make us do anything. It's like, all right, what do you guys want to do? What's going to happen? And we make it up, and he tells us how we do it. And you never have to, like, you can always try.
yeah,
When Thog says, "What do you want to do?" You can always try. Like it may not be something that's orthodox or in the
yeah,
rules or used there's something that normally people would do. But if you say that you want to do it, he's going to give you a chance
yeah.
to try.
So what?
You know,
Yeah, and what were parts of being in? And by the way, I totally agree. Like all of that, uh, Thoglor has just really made it. He's ushered in so many people like myself that didn't understand it, but given it, he's like empowered us to like
exactly.
and it's just it's people that are just anxious and like not sure where to start. And I was surprised to learn, Lou, learning from him that like he doesn't have much of a D&D background.
But he's just such a creative fucking uber genius that
That
he
it
can
just
roll with all
fit,
the shit no
and you
matter
would never
what.
guess. You would never
Yeah,
guess.
yep.
So, yeah, I did an episode with him. People should go back and listen to it. Story time with Lou. We're gonna do another
Oh my
one, I think, in about a month. Pretty good. And I hope that you'll come back and do another episode sometime. We can follow up, and we don't have to always talk politics and stuff like that. But
sure,
whenever
I'm
there
happy
is
to.
something like that that comes up, and I'm curious, like I want to hear your side of it.
Sure,
And
I'm happy
I won't admit, like, if I don't know, like, if I'm not going to just spout a bunch of stuff I don't know.
to.
I like to hear, like to hear things from all sides. So I was happy that you shared that. Let's get back into this. What was it about theater that you enjoyed the perform? Like, how did you get into that starting out with?
Um, I started out with that as a kid, actually.
Okay.
My
Did
parents
your
put
mom,
me in.
was your mom or your dad or anybody else in your family interested in that? Or was it something that,
Nope, no,
no?
I was. No, they put me in this, like, kids, drama group as a
Okay.
kid. Yeah, and it was amazing, and it was something that I enjoyed doing, and I just carried on with it over time, like,
Okay.
got into high
Oh.
school and,
It
you know
was it natural for you, or was it just like a required activity?
Oh, no, no, that was definitely an elective.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The school t
for some kids, they're like, their parents are like, "You have to do something. You have to be in some kind of activity. You can't just do nothing. You're either gonna be in 4-H or you're gonna be in sports or ah, la, 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 la." The kid never really does what they wanna do, but it seems like this is something that really, like were you kinda like a social butterfly in school as a
Oh,
result? Yeah?
for sure,
Yeah, it
yeah,
seems like
yeah.
you would be. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I did go through my stupid broody
Of
period
course.
of
Were you goth?
the teenage oh my god, yes, I had a
Yes,
mohawk.
I knew it.
I
Yes.
did, and I had the
That is
I was
awesome.
one of the first people in my school to get their nose pierced and all that
Sweet. So
for
did you get
sure.
but you carried on with drama the whole time?
Yes.
Or theater or however you wanna call it? I
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's all the
either or.
same.
Um, and then eventually, like, some of your friends started playing D&D and you
Yep.
kinda dove in.
Dove in to the red box.
And oh, cool. And
Yeah, right?
how did, what I was gonna get at here is, like, how did you develop some of the characters that you play now? Did you develop any of them back then, or have they all kind of been, like,
Oh,
impromptu? Was there any
Well,
kind of
no.
like archetypes of things that you've used?
No, I've evolved, I think, a lot from I mean, for the first while, almost every character I played was a elven ranger, back in the day.
Okay. It
And
was all
now
fantasy based, huh? All
yeah, yeah.
I
I've
mean, simpler
actually
times maybe, I don't know.
yeah, no, it was just, what I wanted to do. I wanted to be
Sure.
the dude that, like, could shoot anything from anywhere and flip around and,
Oh.
the ninja elf. I
Well,
like that
now
idea.
but now, I mean, you could go through, like, all of the progression of your characters, and maybe that would be interesting, How do you feel? Do you feel like with more exposure to different types of campaigns and that kinda got your
Yep.
mind working?
Oh, yeah, well, there's always and the thing is, like, now with 5e, I mean, there's just more shit all the time, and there's just more to do and more to think about, and, I mean, what Wizards have done over the last while, they have really stepped into the next century. There's been an entire
Yeah.
new way of
Wizards, the creators of D&D, writers of
yeah.
the handbook and all that. So, what do you prefer nowadays? Do you prefer fantasy realm, more kind of like the grounded in reality stuff? That the campaign that we played was Know You're Dead, and did
Yeah.
we do it? Did we do another one together? I think that was the one.
No, I think that was it.
That was the one. That's really the one I've been kind of, and we've done a couple of side campaign, like one-offs. I don't know if you were there for any of those, but what do you prefer nowadays? Is it a
I I
mix?
I don't have a preference really.
Okay.
I mean, I started writing my own campaign and created a sort of a hybrid, I guess, between D&D and, but
Some other
modern
tabletop games or
modern D&D, but with real scenarios. Like, I actually wrote a Wild West, like,
oh,
take
nice.
place in takes place in a real place in Texas,
Okay.
shortly after, the Civil War,
Okay.
and the amount of stuff that I had as a Canadian kid, that I learned about your sort of Wild West post, after Civil War in order to run this campaign, it was pretty intense, all the
did
shit I had
you
to
did you actually go through with it?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
and
it's not
when was this?
well, it's still sort of in,
Improv. You're in the kind of like intermission in between
yeah, definitely in
seasons, or however you want to say.
yeah, and I really have to pick it back up again because it just
Okay.
hasn't back into place, but
Where does this exist? Was it something you did
just
with people
me
kind of offline?
me on Discord.
Oh, okay. Is
No,
this
yeah, and
something you
well,
would?
and Roll20, of course, but, like, no
Okay. Yeah,
no
roll 20,
streaming.
the sort of online tabletop that people use. I
Yes.
have to assume that some people that listen don't know a whole lot about D&D. You know, you never
Well,
know, but
that's what we're here for, isn't it?
there you go.
Bring
Uh, w- w-
your children into our devil worshiping club of 2.
would you ever consider? Yeah, the devil worshippers. I'm a total devil worshiper. Hail Satan. Uh,
I actually know devil worshipers. I know people
yeah.
who are part of the
How
church.
hard? How hardcore do they get?
It's not.
It's
You would be astonished at how normal it is.
hmm.
You really would. You would if I just wrote it down for you and you read it out, and then I told you at the end the punchline was that it's actually Church of Satan rules,
Yeah,
you would die. You would flip. It's
yeah.
pretty normal.
Hmm. Like, would you ever consider doing kind of like what Buckle has done with a campaign? And he was DMing a campaign on Sippy Tango, friend of mine
I
he's
love
hosting a.
Sippy Tango.
Yeah, he's
I
cool.
wanna squeeze his little face. He's so sweet.
Like, would you ever do something like that, or you want to can't, or are you still kind of getting your legs under you when it comes to this type of thing?
Well, I mean, at the moment,
Maybe that's not the
um
point of it.
no, it's right now my work life is pretty
Tough.
challenging because I work night shift. I work the
Oh yeah.
midnight to 8 in the morning shift to come home, get
Mm.
my kids, send them off to work, And,
Take your kids and send them off to work, huh?
right to school. I mean, sorry.
I'm just kidding.
My kids, yeah. No,
Somehow that sounded really, like, I was like, I know that's not right, but if that was true,
well,
your kids are working the day shift, you're working the night
yeah,
shift.
kids are in a day
Yeah,
shift. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
sure they feel like they're working, that's for sure.
But no, yeah, so like normal adult, like daytime hours, you're like sleeping.
I'm asleep. I'm asleep while they're at school, and then when
Mhm.
they get home, I get up and do the dinnery things, and I'm trying not to be online, while they're awake.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that makes
so
sense.
there's just really, I mean, because they go to bed at, 7:30, 8 o'clock, kinda thing,
Mhm.
and I don't really wanna be online while they're awake. I did that for too long, and I
Yeah,
know how much time I
yeah,
stole from them for my
yeah.
own
That's
gain.
that's what I was gonna say. You're stealing time away from them to that. As a mom, I can't imagine how that feels. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
It was necessary for me for a while. I don't think we've ever really talked about, the fact that I live with PTSD.
mm,
I'm a person who is in the medical field, and I, went through some serious trauma. Part of my coping to get through it was to play D&D.
oh,
And
okay.
yeah, and so I played a lot of D&D, and it got me through. Really, like, I mean, being part of, Thog's community, saved my life.
Wow, that's really beautiful, man.
Mhm.
I didn't know that.
Yep. Yeah.
So did you want to expand more on that, or is it just kind of like a statement, like it really helps you, like,
Well, I mean, there are certain things that will people will come to in a time of need, and it can be any kind of thing. But I mean, people go into religion,
yeah,
people drink a lot, people have all
yeah,
these different mechanisms to help themselves through a situation that is difficult.
mm, hmm,
And it can be fairly maladaptive, and you can do things for the wrong reasons. And so there is a combination, I think, that I'm coming to the realization that I did take too much time to do that, to look after
mm.
myself, and I neglected my children for too long.
But
Um,
but you healed along the way, and
mhm,
at least to an extent. Of course, you're not. I mean, nobody ever really fully heals from that. I can't imagine. It's always kind of it's a memory. It's always with you,
yeah.
but you're
Well,
definitely
I mean, I'm
better.
still in
You're
therapy.
Yeah, of course. It's gonna be a lifetime thing,
Yep.
I'm sure,
Mhm.
but you're definitely, like, you're healthier now as a
I
result. I
am.
can imagine.
I'm a lot healthier, and I'm helping my children by being more
Yeah,
convenient
that's
there
great,
for
and
them.
I think that's, it's really kind of, well, I mean, I'm sure it was just like your instinct. You realize after a certain amount of time that you needed to just be, present more, I guess.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
exactly it.
yeah.
Yep. They were very, very, very understanding. Very,
Oh.
very understanding for
Well, you're
giving me
one
the time that
the
I needed.
one the one kid you got, she's like light years ahead of
I'm
of
so
maybe other, yeah,
I'm
that's
so blessed.
crazy.
I'm
That's
so
so crazy.
blessed. Yeah.
So your character Jenny that
Mm.
that you had, explain that character, and maybe if there's any sort of real life inspirations for that character, because I love that character from
Oh,
our campaign. Yeah.
Jenny, Geneviève Duval, she was, a doctor. I don't know, she was quite irreverent, despite the fact that she was someone who grew up in a very, interesting household, that her father was himself in the medical field. He was a surgeon, and her life was quite controlled by her family. But she just wanted to escape from where she lived to go to the States and become a doctor where she was, where she wanted to go and do her own thing and be her own person without having to have daddy, control her.
Okay.
I don't know. She still managed to find goodness in people, and
Yes.
despite the serious, you know, stuff that was going on in her life as a character.
And was there other, she had some experience in in dealing with sort of wartime setting. Is that is
So
that
yeah,
is
that's
that
when we
true?
were yeah, we were stuck in a post-apocalyptic
Oh, true. Yeah, that's true.
situation where we were.
Before, like, I guess before our characters met, she kind of survived and had been
Uh-huh.
through some serious stuff, but yet
Mhm.
you were kind of like the calming force among the group. Other people being a bit more skeptical, and you were more kind of willing to. It was almost like the the quintessential like doctor, always wanting to to help where needed. My character being kind of like just a rip off of a Walking Dead character. I did
He
end
was
up kind of
great.
evolving him over time. Yeah.
He
It-
was I mean, it was amazing how close we were as characters
yeah.
in that game, and it like, I mean, to the point where we were like, I mean, Jenny was crying all the time,
Yeah.
you know, because things kept happening. Oh my god, when you got
Yeah.
killed, oh,
Yeah,
oh,
spoilers, just kidding. People don't even know. Some people might be might have remembered that from watching Thog stream, but anyway,
I got so much trouble for crying on the stream, and, you know, and I remember people saying, "Oh, no, Jenny's crying again." She's
no, it made it kind of compelling, I think,
"I'm
if
gonna make
people
everybody cry tonight."
yeah, I guess if people want to know, I'll give a brief rundown of my character, Duke Johnston. He's based off of the guy from The Walking Dead, or no, Fear the Walking Dead. What's his name? John, the guy with the hat. He's kind of like a backcountry like police officer, and he kind of exiled himself because he accidentally shot somebody, and he really couldn't forgive himself for it. And that was kind of the basis for my guy, is that like it was the same. It was really like the same story. He wanted to like protect and serve, but one time, he wasn't used to stressful situations, so like he accidentally shot someone. Well, no, yeah, it's either he accidentally shot him, but anyway, he shot someone who was like robbing the gas station, and the person like bled out. He didn't like shoot to maim. He like tried to shoot so he would just injure the guy, and the guy ended up bleeding out. And he didn't really mean for that to happen, but he could never really forgive himself. So eventually he made his way out, and he didn't really feel like he deserved anything. Like he was always on like a road to redemption, but yet he was like a very skilled outdoorsman and all these things. But he always kind of had that chip on his shoulder, to where he could never really repay his debt and for the longest time, like, well, his thing was like he was really skilled with guns, but he didn't want to use them because he knew the damage it did, and he didn't like want to kill innocent people, and he was just like, but eventually he's like, screw it, it's the apocalypse, like we
Right,
gotta they do it to like he got like grew this like great bond with the other characters in the campaign,
yeah,
and like
and in the end,
eventually felt loyal. Yeah.
he sacrificed himself
Yeah,
in the
basically.
end, you
Like
know, like,
literally almost jumped on a grenade is
yeah,
basically how he died.
yeah,
So a couple of
ouch.
my characters have kind of gone out like that. The one guy was like, leave me. I'd gotten bitten, like, leave me be,
Mhm.
basically, and this guy jumps on a grenade. So yeah, it's yeah, it makes you it gives you that classic feeling of, "Yeah, he didn't deserve to die.
No, he didn't, and
Yeah.
he was so like, it was such a sacrificial, situation where
Mm,
he really did, like, go on
mm.
beyond the call of his own duty for to do it,
Yeah.
Um, it was just oh, it was so beautiful.
Yeah, but your character, Jenny, was just like, it was just like, the voice and the mannerisms and everything. It was just so spot on. It kind of made you feel all warm and tingly, like this is somebody who I would want taking care of me, in the apocalypse. It was great. It was great.
We had a good
Um,
time with it.
so
It
what?
was even the awful parts of it, like, we somehow managed to really kind of enjoy ourselves in some of the
Yeah.
worst scenarios possible.
It's cool with Thoglor as the astute DM. Um,
Mhm.
some other good favorite recent characters that you've done, or any campaigns you're not involved with any right now, right?
No, not at the moment, no.
Yeah.
Nope. I've done a fair amount of playing, playing role play through in TTRP
Sure.
and Conan RP. Oh my gosh.
Conan RP.
Oh yeah, it's super
Yeah.
fun. You get to do some like completely outrageous, weird shit,
Yeah.
and I've enjoyed that. I'm really looking forward to picking up Red Dead.
Red Dead Redemption 2.
I
Yeah.
want that so bad so I can be like
Yeah.
I want to ride a horse and
Do you gravitate towards that setting a lot, huh?
I do. I do.
Nice.
I wanna rob
I wanna hear
trains.
that. I wanna see that. Yeah.
I wanna rob trains, I wanna rob trains and
Convince Thog
by
to do a
myself.
Wild West campaign.
Yeah, there you go. I
Dude.
wanna own I wanna own a, like, a brothel or something like
Yeah.
that, just something
Yeah.
completely
Twitch.tv slash the Thoglord, by the way. I'll put the link in
yeah.
the description for people. They can check him out. He's got a couple new he's always got something new going on over there.
Mhm.
Um well, hey, this has been really cool to hear a bit more about your background and like just about Canada.
Well,
Things I didn't
I
know.
can't believe how much we've talked about all the most, like, taboo subjects. We've
This
talked politics and
this is
religion and
this is I wanted to talk. I came on here wanting to talk about religion. I wanted to express a little bit about like how I didn't really even talk about my own, but let's say that for a we'll put a pin in that one. I don't think we got
okay,
time,
alright.
but yeah, I don't want to take up too much of your time here, but we've already done like almost 2 hours.
I
Uh,
know, it's crazy. It's gone by so
yeah,
quick.
we'll do it again sometime. Maybe we'll delve into the dark waters of whatever it
Oh,
is.
yes.
But no, this is the freedom of doing a format like this. We couldn't have these conversations on Twitch. It's always like, man, I'd really like to talk about this, but I can't. I just shouldn't say it. I shouldn't, because it's like, well, I mean, it's not about like certain words I can't say. It's just like certain topics that really don't belong there. And
Right.
there's the chat, and then the chat starts arguing, and it's like, well, that's not really a
Ah,
healthy form of
yeah.
yeah, but this where you talk one on one. This is where you
Mhm.
can learn more as long as you listen. And I hope that I didn't talk over you too much during that.
No.
I got some opinions, but I'm not like deeply rooted in those either. I'm just I guess maybe it's more skepticism than anything.
Fair
Um,
enough. I mean, but
yeah,
I don't know. If you don't consider things, if you don't like what's that phrase that's saying about the unexplored life is not worth living,
yeah, man. If there's any regrets that I have, which it's bullshit if people say they don't live their life without regrets. It's human nature. It's that I was so closed off like culturally and that because of how I was brought up and that I didn't seek out more information, that I didn't continue school or I didn't travel abroad, all these things that could have expanded my mind. Like I almost wish that I would have been born uh, in the year 2000. So I would have been in the internet age. So at least I would have had, I think that kids have a jump start. At least the information is spreading so much quicker,
Mm,
I wish for that. But instead I was the class of 2000, not born in 2000.
right. I don't know. I think every generation has its pluses and minuses,
Sure.
for sure.
Yeah. But we're evolving in the right direction. I feel,
I hope
I do
so.
feel that. I do feel that. But as long
I
as
hope
technology doesn't kill us or we kill each other,
so.
whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great way to end it, huh? Um,
Mhm.
how can people find you if they want to interface with you? How can they find you?
Well, I mean, I don't stream on Twitch, but, you can
Yeah.
find me on Twitch regardless. Shalom Salam on Twitch.
Hmm.
I'm also Shalom Salam on Twitter.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you very much. You are a great person. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Me too, 2 hours later, my friend. It's
Yeah,
lovely. Thank you for inviting me.
of course. We'll do it again.
Excellent.
Music in this episode is from the artist Data Rebel. Audio mixing help from my friend TipsyJack. Coming up on the podcast, we've got more conversations. I've got quite a few lined up, so January is going to be a fun month. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Emotive Podcast. And all relevant links, as always, on our website, pod.co/emotive. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.